evening, everyone, and welcome to Echoes of the Heart, Life's Joys and Sorrows, the first poetry reading of 2025, coordinated and hosted by Rockland County's new Poet Laureate, Juan Pablo Mobili. I'm Dorothy Atzel, the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Rockland. We're also known as ACOR. And it's an honor to stand before you tonight as we celebrate the power of poetry, to bring us together, reflect our shared experiences, and give voice to the human spirit. At ACOR, we're incredibly proud to partner with County Executive Ed Day and his team to bring the 2025 Poet Laureate program to life. This collaboration reflects our shared commitment to fostering the arts and ensuring they remain vibrant and an essential part of our community life. I'd like to take a moment to recognize John Lyon, Chief of Staff to County Executive Ed Day, who's in the back of the room. He's representing the County Executive's office and team this evening, and we sincerely appreciate you and your team's support in making this program a reality. Thank you for your partnership. I also want to acknowledge the Poet Laureate Advisory Committee for their invaluable dedication and expertise. Their contributions were instrumental shaping this program, and they continue to serve as an essential resource to our Poet Laureate. Not sure if any of them are here tonight, but I'm going to name them just the same. Mary Lou Bushi, Tracy Dunstan, Helene Fisher, Richie Fulco, Lily Greenberg, and Morgana Zalara. So we thank them for their hard work and their commitment. Actually, Morgana is right over there on the side of the room. And finally, Juan, congratulations on being named Rockland County's 2025 Poet Laureate. And we're thrilled to support you on this journey and look forward to the impact your work has in strengthening the connections across our communities and celebrating our diverse cultures and inspiring future generations through the beauty of poetry. So on that note, Juan's going to come up and start the program.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. How are you? Good. That's good. My friend was saying that maybe the people that are in this room are here because they have late fees with the library. And the option was to attend a poetry reading. So you'll see that there are people return things on time from now. So first of all, I want to thank you, Dorothy, for opening. I want to thank John for being here. I want to thank actually the County Executive Office, Ed Day, and the team for entrusting me with this honor and responsibility, and certainly to the advisory committee and particularly Dorothy Atzel for the support they already given me. They're my spiritual bodyguards. And of course to all of you. So I want to get going with the good part, which is the poets that will read. But I want to say, this is what you can say about us. We're poets that have something in common, and that is being willing to explore what it takes to be human in a world that's far from ideal at times. Short on compassion, but breathtakingly beautiful. These poems speak of our lives, yours and mine. They speak of joy or grief, about our families and moments that shaped us, and how the heart often wrestles with itself to go on loving. So the first poet, and what we'll do is each poet will introduce the next one, will be Rebecca Watkins. And I'd like to say a few things about her. Rebecca is a poet and the author of Field Guide to Forgiveness, which is available in the back, and Sometimes in These Places from 2017. Her poems have appeared in the Banyan Review, Sin Fronteras, New Feathers Anthology, the Roanoke, is that how you pronounce it? The Roanoke Review, and Underbow, among other literary journals. And her created nonfiction has been shortlisted by the Malahat Review's Open Season Awards. She holds an MFA in poetry and an MS in education from the City University of New York. And very important, Rebecca is a Clarkston High School teacher and has been a South Nyack resident for many years. So please help me welcome Rebecca.
Hey, thank you so much, Juan, and it's an honor to be here. Juan is a dear friend of mine, and I admire him not only for his talent, but also his commitment to helping others with their writing, and his commitment to bring a poetry community into Rockland County. Thank you, Valley Cottage Library, for having us, of course. The first poem I'm going to read was published last year in the January review, and part of the theme is about a quote that I read, which said, "It is a revolutionary act to love yourself." It's called Reclaiming. Another shooting, but I don't ask how many this time. Instead, I take my dog for a walk past the empty house where the paint peels in the shape of fish. It reminds me that it's Easter, but I'm not inclined to trust resurrections. The woman who lived there would clean out her beds this time of year. When her flowers bloomed, she'd water and weed her bleeding hearts, her purple aster, her fragrant peonies. This is how it is at 50. Time moves unnoticed, like paint peeling on a wall, an overgrown garden, an uneven complexion, and crepe-like skin on my arms. But I refuse to be ashamed of the skin over my bones or the bones that hold me up. Somewhere, women die young. Somewhere, worse things are happening. I know this, and I just want to love this body the way I once should have and didn't. This next one follows the same theme of womanhood, and this one was published in my chapbook Field Guide to Forgiveness, which I have copies of in the back. This is Birthright. The women I came from crawled under a sky that would never be theirs, stealing crumbs of light, yearning for more. They told me not to fling the window open, searching the night skies for the missing pieces of myself. They told me a woman eats her sins and swallows the pain of others. My mother buried weapons under her tongue to work in a man's world. My grandmother, an artist, had 11 children, lost 5 more. She picked up her paintbrush again only right before she died. My great-grandmother had hair down to the floor, and she cut it all off to defy the husband who loved it. They began the story that I will finish. Their poems pounded out the only revolution my blood has ever known. Why is it that when a woman lights herself on fire, it is mistaken for sacrifice or love, rather than the truth she was born to tell? And my last one, some of you have heard before. So I'm a public school teacher, and usually before I read this, I say, I will stop reading this when it's no longer an issue. Planning for the end of the world. Let's darken the windows with a number 2 pencil. Pretend danger isn't a white boy with rage. Let's push the desks against the door, then analyze whether love or death drove Ophelia mad. Let's remain vigilant but human enough to let ourselves feel hunted by our conscience, as we ask children to support arguments with evidence, look for facts from credible sources, but never shed a drop of blue or black ink. Slip a gun in my hand instead of chalk? Since you asked, yes, I will die for your children when the time comes. Decades from now, what story will the history books tell about how our children ducked into closets, huddled into corners? Hush, hold still, don't talk. Away from the window. Lights out. Ashes, ashes. We all fall down. Sometimes I can't make it through that one without crying, but thank you. I am so excited to hear our next reader. She's Jo Lillian. She is a poet, a creative healer, and a performer whose work explores authenticity, drama, and the power of support through embodied expression. With 12 years of theater experience, she has recently performed her slam poetry at the Nyack Rights Weekend opening for New York Poet Laureate Marie Howe, and at the Poems of Place reading at Riverhook Preserve. Through one-on-one consulting, workshops, and courses, Jo coaches others to embrace their creative work and liberation, and she lives in Nyack.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I want to thank Juan for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. I'm very excited to be part of this gathering with such gifted writers, and just to gather with all of you tonight. So the poems I'm sharing today are both found poems. These poems are a mix of found phrases and words blended with my own, to awaken something new in me. One draws from Mirabai Starr's Ordinary Mysticism, and the other from the unexpected wisdom of Hulk Hogan. I love this form because it reminds me that creativity lives everywhere, even in the most unexpected of places. Beyond poetry, I help people reconnect to their own creative energy through healing practices. And if you're curious, I have these bookmarks in the back that have QR code where you can connect with me, and I'm offering a free discovery call right now. So there's more info in the back and my website and my Instagram. Okay. This first one is called Hulk Hogan versus the mother effing patriarchy. A mostly found poem. Let's get one thing straight, brother. I am the sun. Yeah, this thing's affecting me real personal, Mr. So-Called Wonderful. When you tell a generation of little dudes, of little Hulksters to believe in you, to train with you, to say their prayers with you, I take that real personal, wonderful. It affects me down in my heart, brother. No games, school's out, no time to play, wonderful. You're in my universe now, and there's no way out of my universe, man. It's gonna get real stable. I'm gonna hold the space. I'm gonna set you up for accountability, brother. And when we get in the ring, it's gonna get real vulnerable. The highs just aren't worth the lows, man. And come on, you've been on one heck of a high. Jumping on all those little dudes, man. Squashed them like a grape, like a piece of meat that the wizard fed ya. But tell me, brother, what happens when the high bottoms out? When the fault line breaks off and we sink into the bottom of the sea? When we're nothing but primordial tubes, blip, blip, blipping our way back to the light source? Because that's when the real surrender begins, brother. And when the ocean swallows it all, man. When the tide don't care who is king. When every muscle, every title, every chant from the crowd gets stripped down to nothing but breath. That's when you gotta ask yourself, what's left? What's real? And I'll tell you what's real, brother. I'm the Hulkster, man. I'm not no everyday slice of beef, brother. I'm not no everyday cut, man. I ain't scared of no goddamn rush. I'll be my own damn daddy. So even if you think you can hold me down and whip me with a belt, just remember you're in my new universe now, man. And there's no way out of my universe, brother. And when you get in there and you feel my tenderness crash upon you like a cannon and crack you open like a breeze that brings you to your knees, man, you remember you're in my my universe now, brother, and you remember, I am the sun. This is a poem called A Prayer for the Gloriously Imperfect, an imperfectly found poem. Magnificent beings who put on eye makeup to distract from your neglected roots going gray, whose pokey, spiky hairs refuse to stop growing back on your chin, who cheats with chopsticks. Let your sacred rage in. Queens of my heart, who struggle to hug, hold on to your goodness, surrender to it, and watch your life open like a fist, like a flower, like a gate. You who showed up late, you are as cherished as the family of birds gliding high in spirals, like moving steeples in the sky. You who can't spell, look at art, at the Monet on the wall. Your arms are the tendrils of the roses. Your unshaven legs, the marble of the museum halls. Your snores, the mischievous laughter of children. Divine mess. Sing to your cracked, dried skin. It is every bit as holy as the sea. Have sex with your stretch-marked, post-baby, 40-pound overweight body as if you were making love to the goddess herself, because she lives in each precious crease of your layers. You cry, I did it wrong, I must be wrong, bad and wrong and beyond redemption, but your uneven handwriting, your dirty fingernails, the piles and piles of laundry run in the same stream with the poetry of the wild heart. The blood stain on the back of your pants, the one you tried to hide with a long sweatshirt, the one that triumphed over every effort of being buried. Let it rise like the sun. Let it unfurl like a crimson bloom in blessed water. A vast ocean of miracles lies awake within it. Ancient chaos, go. Run with the stallions on the beach. Their gray majestic manes swirl with salt and brine. Follow their yoo-hoos and find a trail back to your beginning. By the rainstorms, by the snow bridges, and all that lie within the fire of the imperfect. Shine your love into your dark corners and let them scream. Thank you. Brian Cates is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and a poet. His book, The Murder of a Shopping Bag Lady, the true story of a homeless woman slain on the streets of New York, was a finalist for the Mystery Writers of America's Edgar Allan Poe Award. While his poetry has appeared in numerous journals, including Patterson Literary Review, Third Wednesday Banyan Review, he lives with his wife, Polly Condit, in his house in the woods in Pomona.
That's some act to follow, huh? That's extraordinary. Thank you all for coming on this gorgeous evening. So this first poem that I want to read grows out of many of the life-changing encounters that I had researching the book that Kelly Jo mentioned. Sleeping rough with homeless folks off and on for 3 years in parks and doorways and city shelters. The poem is set in Madison Square Park in Manhattan. It's much different now than then. Gentrification has eliminated the fountain that's mentioned in this poem, not to mention all the homeless people who lived there once. All that remains now is the impressive St. Gaudens statue of Admiral Farragut, the hero of the Civil War. And of course, for some of us, the indelible memory of what it once was. This poem was published in Patterson Literary Review. Madison Square, Obad. A police car streams down Fifth Avenue. Out of the way, out of the way, out of the way, as dawn hurls her blazing bomb over the heroic bronze head of Admiral David Glasgow Farragut. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Barbara pulls herself from her bench, heaves her feet, swollen like footballs, onto the pavement, and pushes her Christidi shopping cart toward the old drinking fountain at a corner of the park. When she was young, Barbara might have raced into the park on roller skates, stooped to push the small brass button at the fountain's base, and jammed a finger over the nozzle to aim a jet of water at a girlfriend, giggling. Yes, Barbara was a girl once, as your mother and your grandma once were, your sister, your aunt, your cousin, your wife, perhaps you. Were you a girl once, playing hopscotch, jumping rope, dreaming of princesses and unicorns? The fountain bubbles up a mingy inch. She cups her hand, splashes water on her face, under her blouse, reaches down into her thrift store slacks. She leans, slurps like a dog, rubs a crusty finger across her gums. It tastes of brass. They say fear tastes like brass, also anger, also failure. She spits it on the flagstone and rushes to finish before the morning's work-bound hordes invade, flinging pity and loathing, each waving an invisible eviction notice. This next poem was published in Banyan Review when Juan was serving as the guest editor. Juan and I often work with each other on our poems, and this is one in which he helped immeasurably, simply by suggesting I drop the last stanza, which, as I remember, made some meaningless reference to Rene Magritte's painting of the same name as the title. The treachery of images. She wore his picture in a locket, and when she opened it and pressed it to her lips, she knew it was not him, just an image. But she could feel his touch in the place between her breasts. Some evenings she'd look out the window and see him home from war with her boy, now just a bulge in her belly, bouncing a ball against the brick wall of their apartment house. Then that morning came the knock, and a white-gloved sergeant, a young chaplain holding back tears, then taps, a gun volley, and someone handing her a folded blue triangle of stars. This last poem is about a favorite family recipe, and I hope much more than that. It was published in Gyroscope Review. Chicken cacciatore. When my mother was a girl, her mother would pick some lusty tomatoes from her garden, a green pepper twisted like embracing lovers, and a few priapic carrots still smelling of the fecund earth. She'd dispatch my mother to the grocer's with a list, and Mom would skip home with a plucked chicken, some onions, garlic, and fistfuls of fat white mushrooms, the bill tallied in pencil on the brown paper bag. Grandma would pull up a footstool so Mom could reach the stove to stir and taste, leaving the tiny galaxy of her fingerprint on the page where Grandma had written the recipe in her perfect Palmer method script. For generations, this meal has been among the gifts received from thy bounty. At Sunday dinners, served up with laughter and tears, arguments, bardic old country sagas, and Chianti. Now it's the red sauce whirl of my fingers on that page as I prepare our Sunday dinner in the heavy black cast iron skillet that was my grandmother's, my mother's, and now mine, stirring, stirring, patient as a prayer wheel. And now it's my pleasure to bring Marjorie Tesser, whose poetry and prose have been published in a number of journals and anthologies, including Swim and Cut Leaf. She's the author of 2 chapbooks, one a Firewheel Chapbook Award winner. She received the 2019 John B. Santiani Award from the Academy of Poets. She's co-edited 3 anthologies of poetry and prose and is the editor-in-chief of Mayor Mom, Egg Review. She lives in West Nyack.
Thank you for that nice introduction. Thank you all for coming out on this very challenging weather evening. Thanks to Valley Cottage Library for hosting us and Arts Council of Rockland for all your support of poetry. And thanks, of course, to Juan who invited me. To read, Juan and I met in a poetry manuscript workshop where poets work together on manuscripts in progress. So I'm going to read 2 poems from my manuscript in progress. Okay, this one is called On Mount Ventoux, I Become a Bird. Our little rented Citroen grinds up the road etched around the peak, the highest Alp in France. Each sharp turn presents new vistas. The land beside us falls away. My nails dig into my palms as every shift flings us out away from the safety of the mountain's bulk. Here they don't believe in cosseting guardrails, nothing between us and oblivion. At last we gain the top, so high the air is thin. The day labors beneath a haze, the view accordions out behind a scrim of light cloud cover. My husband is here, and the kids tumble from the car to read the sign that marks this highest point, to squint against the mist to see the patchwork land below, as far below as if we're in a plane. I can't will myself to move, to exit the car on my side, closest to where the mountain shears off to nothingness. My girl and 2 sons scamper along the thin ridge. Watch them, I plead to my husband, who flashes me a look. Of course he will. But the eldest tends to lose herself in thought. And hadn't my middle boy just slid some 30 feet in the Roussillon quarry to land, thank heaven, in soft sand? And the baby, only 3. They range along the ridge. The middle boy scales a boulder to see better, and I'm trapped behind glass. With all my strength, I will myself to push the handle, stand outside, a speck on the peak's shoulder, but I can't let go of the car. Can't move to hold them back, only call to them, as a bird will warn its kind of hawk or other threat. They are rapt at the view. All I see is the edge. And this next one is based in Rockland County. Juan had suggested we read poems of family and home. So the first one was family, and this one is home. As many of you may have gone through the pandemic up here in Rockland, and there were some terrible privations that caused. We all had losses from that. But there were a few blessings too. And one was the silence. When first people were sheltering at home, the roar of the thruway was no longer audible from my backyard. And so this poem takes place then. Walking in circles, at least I knew where I was going.
That's great.
That summer I took long walks in the shade of beneficent trees. Through their boughs, wind whispered, and bird calls, the chittering of squirrels. Sprinklers waved ballet arms above the lawns they quenched. I stretched my arm out too, leaned into their cool breath of mist. That summer I paced the spine of the road, not the shoulder. My body, concrete, moved through the material world, but the churning march of words slowed to stop, stood and looked. A peace, the treat of trading if for is. And now it is my treat to introduce our host and the Poet Laureate of Rockland County, New York, Juan Pablo Mobili. Juan was born in Buenos Aires and adopted by the state of New York. His poems appeared in Tupelo Quarterly, Hanging Loose Magazine, South Florida Poetry Journal, and Louisville Review, among others, as well as many international publications. His work has also been nominated for the Pushcart Prize several times, which is quite prestigious. His chapbook, Contraband, was published in 2022. I saw some copies back there. I'm gonna get one. And he is currently finishing his first full-length book of poems. He has been appointed Poet Laureate of Rockland County, New York. Please welcome Juan Pablo Mobili.
Thank you. So I'm going to read a few poems. So this is, I'm going to read from both books, the soon to be and the one already out there. This is like an arc, if you will. I was thinking best way to introduce myself is to read poems that tell you not only about me. So first I'm going to read a couple of poems about there, Argentina, and then about here, right? So when I was young, when I was not so young. This is called The Sacrament of Grapefruit. My mother would spoon the grapefruit's flesh piece by piece out of their casings and sprinkle them with sugar to entice two young boys to give bitterness a mild and early try, or hide the nature of life's taste. She was taught that God must always be forgiven for not answering our prayers, because we were too flawed, too self-involved, or too damn mortal to understand even a fruit. That was my mother's grapefruit sacrament. Her hope that we grew a rind thick enough to live and tell about it. To be ready to face a tart existence, its bitter pulp arranged in strict compartments. So, welcome, young. That was my mom. That's it. This is, I say every poem is true, although things never happen. This one did. It's called A Photograph. There we are, my father holding our hands, a sunny afternoon at the Buenos Aires Zoo. The tallest of the boys, me. My brother, the one scowling, although we traveled to see the animals he loved. Somewhere between the old lion and the small platoon of goats, he began to scream again, incensed like a dictator demanding the heads of the opposition on a plate. By then, my father surrendered and bought him ice cream, a paper cup full of frozen vanilla, from the old man pushing his cart, that if you dug intently, it would unearth its hard, dark red strawberries. Peace did not last long. Even madder than before, inconsolable, he railed that his ice cream was not warm. In a suit, on Sunday, at the zoo, my father talked patiently to him about the temperature of ice cream. Today, my brother is a lovely man, the nicest guy you ever met. But I knew him when he was ruthless and ruled our small apartment like only kings and children do. So here is when I was old enough to begin to notice the world has something to do with us. It's called, the first line is also the title. After midnight, our kitchen was a busy scene. My father up, dunking what was left of a stale baguette in a glass of cold milk. I coming home from discussing the responsibilities of poetry in a troubled country like ours. And my mother, who would join us, half asleep, lighting up a cigarette, worry about my brother's whereabouts. While other families slept, mine talked loudly about our wishes. Coins we cast down a deep well, hoping we heard a distant splash. I'll take it. Okay, so this is kind of from there to here. As a matter of fact, not in this version, but I think I started to write this poem probably about 25 years ago. Coming to America, I took what I loved most and tried to leave behind whatever made me sad. The delusion of a young man who lost a close friend to a country growing meaner. I boarded the plane as wide-eyed as a fox trembling before the very first hen house, unaware I would become a foreigner forever. For years, the loveliest day remained that flight, the hum of the wind by the window, the deliberate indifference of clouds, a truce with life itself, the joy of being swaddled in midair. And among the many, one of you were talking about those moments of joy, right? Like you were talking during the pandemic, there were moments, almost blessings, if you will. So there were many things, that I'm so grateful and forever will be about America and about how I was welcomed. And then also as you grow up, you receive news, and among them may be that your parents passed away. So I'm gonna write a poem for each of my parents, to remember them. So this is called Thinking of My Father in a Cafe in Zurich. My father was a poet and a citizen. Father and husband, next. He was not an easy man, but his humor was his window to his neighbors. When he spoke of soccer matches, you'd imagine an evening at the Bolshoi Ballet. When he spoke about his childhood, you could not help thinking of a deserted beach. It took me years to realize his difficult poems were his idea of a message to his sons. Every time I write a poem, I wonder what stanza he would frown at, or how he played with the crumbs on the linen tablecloth when I said something that hurt. So that was my dad. Thank you. And this is good. It's also known as the closest thing I have to an anchor. This is when people pull out the lighters, okay? Because it's about my mom. And then I have a couple more. By the way, the first line is true, the rest is poetry. Farewell. My mother passed away in the back of a Buenos Aires taxi. Her friend thought she was sleeping. My mother loved taxis. On buses, she was somber, circumspect like a locksmith. But in taxis, she would come alive. They were a luxury she let herself enjoy, delighting in the traffic, counseling the driver, on joyous purpose, In the back seat, she would imagine what ease of means might be. Had she not chosen to be ashes scattered where my fathers were, the hearse would have been followed by a caravan of black and yellow cars. You would have not seen old and young men driving without passengers in mourning for my mother. Trucks would not impose their size and cut anyone off for a change. And the lights would turn green as they approach each corner. I think she would have loved to know that they all came to pay respects. A line as long as a pedestrian's eye could see. Bus drivers would suddenly stop making fare change and bow their heads. At the eulogy, the priest would raise his hands and slowly say, "Farewell, beloved passenger. May the scent of vinyl that always brought you joy accompany you to heaven. Farewell." Okay. Can you take a couple more? This one is called, and this is in the last one was in Contraband, the book I already published. This is one of the ones on the new book, and this poem is called The Love of Country. There are two words I associate with love I envy. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. And even though I can say them, once a foreigner, always a foreigner. The two soft B's and the enigmatic Y are not my birthright. Can you love a country the way you love a lover? Was I supposed to leave a note on the dresser when I left? Should I have tried the old, "It's not you, it's me"? When it was you that pushed me away with your cruelty. But, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, once you've loved, you can't deny you embrace even the stupidest of choices, or the city everyone warned you to watch out for, or the government that stabbed you in the back, smiled, told you to quit moping about being born where you were, and left you alone. The longing so close to your heart you could feel its breath. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Okay, a couple more. This is now, you can say also, I'm a man somewhat older than the guy who was eating grapefruit at the beginning. And this one is called Learning to be a Foreigner. Who else would travel on holiday to arrive home and realize that his sudden revelation was only an old memory? Who would seem a stranger to his own family? His mother asking questions only her son would be able to answer. His brother hoping secretly this tourist is a kinder version of a sibling who robbed them from everyone's applause. But it all starts to make sense when he stands before the window at his long-gone favorite bookstore. When he notices that the man on the reflection, old enough to be a grandfather, did not live here before. He was thinking of a teenager, never sure of his voice, not this man who looks at himself without blinking, without shifting his weight like that kid. Now he's a foreigner, even in the city where he was born. Thank you. And this is the last one. I'm speaking of looking like a grandfather. This is dedicated to one of my granddaughters, to Sophia. And it's called The Promise of a Ghost. And it's based on, actually it was originally, I was given like a painting and was it kind of like a light at the end of a tunnel kind of image. What if the light at the end of the tunnel is my granddaughter, in a dress made of sweet shadows, holding the candle she lit up at my funeral? Now a woman who understands my prophecies, so silly when she was a little girl entering first grade, a tunnel of her own. If anyone could compel me to emulate Jesus rising from his tomb in war-torn Jerusalem, it could be her. Her beauty an amber since the beginning, when she learned to walk the impossible tightrope between her lovely unicorns and her newly minted parents. What if she reaches the tunnel's end and I'm standing, so young now that I could even be her son, and now she's a woman and greets me, smiling, surprised, and holds me in her arms, while I whisper, I told you I was not going anywhere. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. You know, I mean, I know this is, I don't know if it's a cliche, but it's been said by many before. A poem is not finished until someone reads it, or listens to it. So thank you for completing these poems, all our poems. Thank you to Kelly Jo, Rebecca, Marjorie, and Brian for just being such great poets and such great souls. And to you, which I didn't think before, Carolyn Siki Pape. I always have to, I prepare her saying her name more time than the poem. And thank to all of you for coming. So, Rebecca and my books are there. There's also information Kelly Jo mentioned is in the back. Feel free to go to one of the poets and say hello, or even thank you if you like what they did. At least talk to somebody you don't know and say, what is at least one thing you're taking from tonight, and take it home with you. There are also cookies and words. So thank you, and thank you. That's all.